Good evening to the President and the Vice President of the Trinidad and Tobago Endometriosis Association, the members of the board and the executive of the TTEA, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen joining us this evening. We welcome you to another special session of our Spotlight Endometriosis series. Okay, just allow me to pause for a few minutes. I am having a small technical issue. Right, my apologies. For those of you who may be joining us for the very first time in these Spotlight Endometriosis sessions, the TTEA seeks to raise awareness and educate others, as well as empower patients to advocate for effective endometriosis care. And for our first year, our Spotlight sessions are focused on the issue of mental health. And joining us this evening to talk on the topic, the Soufriere Volcanic Eruptions impact, the needs of women and girls in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have Miss Odelia Thomas and Miss Moureeze Franklyn. Welcome, ladies. I will share just a bit about both of them. Odelia Thomas is a Vincentian national who currently works as a counselor in the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Environment. She is attached to the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center. Following her diagnosis of endometriosis in 2017, and having never heard the term before, Odelia wanted to raise awareness of this illness that affects 1 in 10 women worldwide, yet so little is known about it. She founded the nonprofit organization She.Is.Lotus with a blog and associated social media platforms where she raises awareness of women's health issues, particularly pelvic menstrual disorders, as well as advocates for women living with these illnesses. Odelia has a passion for bringing awareness to issues related to both mental health and women's health, and she welcomes opportunities to share on topics related to these issues. Good evening, Odelia. Thank you for joining us this evening. Moureeze Franklyn is an attorney at law with a passion for community development. She has served many organizations in various capacities, and among other things, she is currently the youth representative of the Caribbean Association for Feminist Research and Action, CAFRA, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She is the president of the board of the St. Vincent Planned Parenthood Association, and she is the youngest serving board member of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Her strong commitment to advocating for sexual and reproductive health and rights has resulted in her being selected to represent CAFRA at the Commission on the Status of Women meetings at the UN headquarters in New York, as well as the ICPD Plus 25 in Kenya. Moureeze focuses on building awareness of sexual and reproductive health and rights of youth through partnership initiatives such as sessions on consent, contraception, and most recently, menstrual health issues in secondary schools and tertiary institutions. Good evening and welcome, Moureeze. I welcome both of you to the Spotlight.
Good evening.
So nice to have you. Before we get into this evening's conversation, though, I just want to remind all of our viewers that any information shared here this evening is strictly for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for individuals. Please consult your healthcare provider if you have questions about your health or before starting any treatment. And we do have an attorney here with us this evening, so we don't want to say anything that we shouldn't be saying. Uh, so we want to jump right into it. And unless you have been living under a rock, we are all aware of the current situation that is unfolding in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have seen, we have heard in the news media what's happening. And I'm sure that most, if not all of us, have been sending requested supplies via some organization or the other. And our hearts truly go out to our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent. I myself am half Vincy and half Trini. So I know, I feel it. No doubt, I'm sure you all are under extreme stress, right? And so this evening, I want to start there. Just tell me, both of you, briefly, how are you doing? I'm seeing beautiful smiles, but I know a lot of us are very good at hiding. So how are you doing? Odelia, you can go first.
Do I give the answer I give to everybody or the real answer? um,
Give the real answer. Spotlight Endometriosis is about real sharing.
well, most of the time I am fine, but in the first few days of the eruptions, the stress of everything really affected my body. So I had a lot of flares during those days. So physically, it was difficult because it affected um, how I was able to function. And mentally, it's a little stressful because I am a counselor and we have been going into some of the shelters. And when you are taking in everybody else's stress,
Mm-hmm.
if you do not have a positive outlet or a good support system, it can be a little hard. So
Yes.
some days are better than some. Let's just put it like that.
Okay. How about you, Maurice?
Um, like Odelia said, I've mostly been fine as well because I do live in the green zone and I do consider myself, to be fortunate. I I have a lot of allergies, so I realized early on during the eruptions that I have a sulfur sensitivity or something. So I get these
Mm-hmm.
horrible headaches from the sulfur. And of course, the ash is all around and everything. And it was stressful because I do, like I said, I really am interested in community development, and I was really worried about not just the short-term impact but the long term, like how are people going to manage. I mean, it's already a difficult situation for women generally, and then now
Mm-hmm.
there's a compounded pressure of living in a shelter. And I used to be a teacher, so I couldn't imagine having to live in a school.
Right. Okay, so we're glad to hear that basically you all are okay for now, and we hope it stays that way. We have been seeing here in Trinidad that the dust is affecting even those people in Barbados. So it's clear that it is not just the people in the red zone who are affected.
No.
So who needs our help, and what kind of help do they need? And this evening we are talking specifically about women and girls. So who needs our help and what kind of help do they need? What kind of help do endo patients, people with PCOS and adenomyosis and fibroids, what do they need?
I would say all women and girls need help, whether you're from the red zone, the green zone, the yellow zone, the orange zone. Everybody needs help because everybody is affected.
Right.
Um, and what sort of help? Anything and everything. Because you have to think of ourselves holistically. It's not just, the physical needs like water, food, clothing, shelter. As women, we need feminine care products, our pads, our tampons, our birth control, all these things. But we also need to look at ourselves as emotional and spiritual beings. And we need that sort of support as well. Because if you take out one component, then you're not treating the whole person. You're just treating part of the person. So I would say we need everything. But in terms of what we're looking at tonight, I would just focus on the physical needs. So period products, the pads, the tampons, the wipes, the hot water bottles for those who need it. Like anything period related or women's health related is needed right now.
Right.
In terms of the persons, I wanted to say that, you know, the focus initially was mostly on, okay, persons from the red zone, evacuees and shelteries. But then you realize that some of the evacuees are staying with persons in the green zone. And of course, that creates an added burden on your household. You know, one of my colleagues said this week he's hosting 4 persons, you know, so it's not just persons that are in the shelters that would need assistance. It's those persons that are living with persons in private homes, you know. And also you have to think about in terms of women traditionally have to carry the burden of the household. You know, you do all of that unpaid work, and now it's probably tenfold because now you have guests, so to speak, but the guests aren't guests, you know, so there's all of that to consider as well.
Right. Odelia, I want to go back to you. So you spoke about period products and hot water bottles, and I guess medication will come in there somewhere. But I think about how uncomfortable I feel when I have my period and I'm not at home.
Yeah.
If I'm at home but a family member is there, I'm still uncomfortable. I can't imagine what our women and girls are going through being in a shelter, maybe a lot of them surrounded by strangers. How is that happening? And if you have an issue like endo or fibroids and you are bleeding profusely and they give you 1 pack of pads and it's done in a day, how is that working out? And how is that affecting those people mentally?
Well, what got me interested in helping is that the first few days after the eruptions, we were just focused on making sure basic needs were met. Because that's what you're thinking, making sure people were safe, making sure they were fed, and they had water and all of that. And one day, my co-director, Kimet, she's here tonight, good night, Kimet, she messaged me and she said she just heard something on the radio and it was really bothering her. And it was a young lady who had endometriosis, had sent in a message to one of the radio stations that she had endometriosis and her period just started and she had nothing. And like in that moment, I realized I had not even, and I have endometriosis. I was so concerned with making sure that people had their basic needs that it did not even occur to me. What if you have a women's health issue and you have nothing? And it was from then that I realized, you know, if imagine, as you said, you have your period at home and it's already uncomfortable. You go to work and you're uncomfortable. Imagine you're at a shelter or in somebody else's house. There's a lack of privacy. You have to depend on somebody else to get to your period products. If you have something like PCOS or endo or even fibroids and your periods are heavy, you're going through packs and packs of pads per period. Can the shelter support that? Will they be understanding of when I come back the next day for another pack of pads? Are they going to look at me funny? Are they going to say something? So that also affects your mental health, because you are just, I'm just thinking, I'm at home and it already bothers me. Imagine I'm in a school or in a church or in a community center and I have to go through this while everybody else is seeing me. You know, you can't find a comfortable spot. You can't do the things that normally help you to relieve the stress and the pain, because I'm sure you wouldn't have run with your hot water bottle, and you wouldn't have run with your oils that you massage on the painful areas, and you might not have even run with your medication.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these things combined can really affect somebody's mental health and your physical well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some
Wow.
of the things that are important to consider.
Got that. I just want to remind folks as you listen, if you have questions, please feel free to type it in the chat sections and we will get to it later on. I want to, something just came up while you were speaking. Are the shelters male and female, or only male, only female? Male,
Male and
female?
female.
They're mixed.
They're mixed. Yeah.
Wow,
So
more
you're
discomfort. Wow. All right. Moureeze, Planned Parenthood is something that I did not consider at all while thinking of the situation. As we would have said, we're thinking of food, water, and shelter. That's the first thought, food, water, and shelter. It's really not something that came immediately to mind. So can you share briefly with us what is Planned Parenthood's role and functions? And currently in this situation, what is your role and function, and what is your response to what is happening?
So generally, we run a clinic, obviously focused mostly on women's health issues. So, you have your breast exams, your prenatal, postnatal services. Obviously, we offer birth control, and we offer voluntary counseling and testing services when it comes to HIV and AIDS. And we basically just try to offer as many services in that area as we can in terms of sexual reproductive health and rights, free condoms, that type of thing. So right now, initially, my response was to consider, okay, let's see what we can get in the way of general donations, but also let's try to see how we can do some outreach and reach the persons directly in the shelters. Unfortunately, we may not be able to do so, but we have, we're looking at a way around it, and we are trying to let persons know that we are there, and we do have packages for persons, that persons can access. I mean, I even would have spoken with Odelia about, certain medication that we have on hand, because that was one of my first thoughts, like persons may not want to, even if you don't have endometriosis or another type of issue, you may not even want to be experiencing your period while you're in the shelter, because I thought about how the schools themselves, and it's not like a lot of them have separate classrooms. So you're in a little room by yourself. You're in a big room with a lot of different persons. So, in terms of offering assistance so that you wouldn't have to experience your period in the first place, so that you could delay it and have some control over the situation. Because that's another issue that I think preys upon your mind. You don't have any control. So if there's something that you can do, I think that would help. But yeah, we're trying to offer free services and free contraceptives.
Great, thank you. And is your organization doing anything with respect to the alleviation of mental stress for those ladies within the shelters?
Well, like I said, we do offer voluntary counseling and testing services. So we are trying to, we've already recruited another counselor so that we can offer counseling services sort of on the go, so to speak. And we also, of course, do that via our Facebook and Instagram pages, where we try to remain accessible so that we can answer any questions and concerns that persons might have. So
Okay,
that's mhm.
so the person has to reach out, or do you reach out to them somehow?
Well, for now, they have to reach out, but I'm
Mhm.
working on a database so that we can reach out to persons. I had some assistance there, and hopefully we can get that off this week.
Okay, great. So if you have information that you want to share that we can maybe share to our Facebook pages with respect to how they can reach out to Planned Parenthood, you can share that and we will share as well, right?
Thank you.
No problem. Odelia, what about you? What is She.Is.Lotus doing to help with the alleviation of mental stress?
Well, with regards to mental stress, we have left our Facebook and our Instagram pages as usual. Our inboxes are open to anybody who wants to send us a message, and one of us, either myself or Kimet, will get back to the person as soon as possible. But with my job, that's what I'm doing all day. With regards to alleviating mental stress. So my full-time job is doing that. And we have WhatsApp hotlines. So even though we go to the shelter, some people are a little shy to talk to the counselors. They may not want to go to a facility to talk to a counselor. So we have hotlines where individuals can just send us a WhatsApp message, or they can call us, whatever they feel comfortable doing, because right now we're trying to meet people where they are and where they're comfortable. So, and a lot of the school shelters have Wi-Fi, so it's easier for them to reach out to us, because a lot of people don't want others to see them going to talk to the counselor, or see them going down to the hospital or the mental health center to see somebody. So we are trying to make our services as accessible as possible to everyone. So that flyer with all of our numbers, I think I shared it with Abisha, and it's also on the She.Is.Lotus Facebook page and our Instagram page. So there are 4 WhatsApp numbers there that persons can reach out to at any time, and somebody will be getting back to you and trying to help you as much as possible to alleviate the mental stress from going through these eruptions.
Great. So I think you kind of partway answered the next question. So I know we are talking generally, but I also think about the young girls from 11 years who are having their periods, shy, don't want to say anything, but I don't know, incredibly uncomfortable because it's hard to share something like that to strangers. Is there anything special? Are we reaching out to them differently in any way? Because they may be suffering, but they are silent.
In terms of differently, not really, because I haven't come up with a way to reach teenagers, because they are underage, and you still need to you have to consider that aspect as well. They are under the age of 18, and still need to go through their parents and all of that.
Parents are concerned.
Yeah, yes. So I have just been going to parents. I do have a few young ladies who have reached out to me, and I have made sure that they talk to their mothers, and that the mothers know that I'm coming to bring supplies and all of that. And when I do take the supplies, I ask that their mothers be with them. So
right.
that's one way I have been doing that. It's so far it's just been the young ladies who know me. I'm hoping that the word gets around and others will reach out as well, because there's so many shelters. It's not just the government public shelters, there are thousands of private homes that have evacuees. So it's a little difficult to have a database of every young person who is menstruating. So right now we're just hoping that they reach out so that we can know that they need help. And that's what we've been trying to encourage. The help is available. Just reach out to us and we will get back to you.
Okay. You said single mother. You said mothers. You have to go through their mothers just now, and it occurred to me that there are probably single fathers out there with young daughters. They are probably suffering a little bit too in terms of how do I have my daughter, because they are maybe also a little embarrassed. So that's
Yeah,
something to consider as well. Those
it is.
single fathers who have daughters and who may very well have endometriosis or adenomyosis or one of those diseases. Um, so I know that we are all trying to help. We're sending food, we're sending water, we're sending clothing, but outside of meeting physical needs, how can we help these ladies who are, they are going through stress because of the situation? They are under stress because of their health issues. And so they are involved in a vicious cycle because the stress exacerbates their health condition. So how can we be our sisters keepers? Because you all are all the way in St. Vincent, we are here in Trinidad or any other place around the world. How can we be our sisters keepers outside of trying to meet physical needs? Either one or both of you can respond.
Um, well, like Odelia said, right? Most of the shelters, they do have internet because they're schools. So I think, now is the time to really leverage the power of online connectivity and having like an online community that they can reach out to. I actually think they might feel more comfortable reaching out online because it lends you some sort of anonymity, and then you feel like, okay, maybe I can be more open with this person. So if it is that we do our best to share our various network resources to say, okay, well, Spotlight Endometriosis, the ladies there, they're there to help you if you guys have a chat going on or something so that they could feel connected, but still not too exposed, as it were.
Right.
Yes, I
Excellent idea.
definitely agree with Moureeze with that. For persons in other countries, we are going to have to use the internet to build connections. What I'm thinking is, as women and girls reach out, if they are interested in talking to somebody in another country who maybe shares the same illness as them, or maybe is the same age as them, we can sort of do what you call it. Back in the day, it was pen pals. I don't know what you
Yes,
call internet buddies, or,
something like
or
that.
something like that. That you have a little internet buddy who you can talk to, and you feel that this person might be a little more objective, and they're not in the country, so they don't really know, quote unquote, your business.
Exactly.
So that idea is, I think, is the best one, because
Great.
people will gravitate to that.
Yeah. So I guess I will leave you all to liaise with our president, Abisha, on working that out. So before we end, because we have to go into the question and answer session, I want to ask both of you to give us like a closing statement on what you would want everyone else to know and understand about the situation and how we can best assist. The real situation.
I have a friend who lives and works in the green zone. And one day we were talking about, having to still work and everything that was happening. And she said something to me that I told her that I'm stealing. She said between the ash, the hormones, and the anxiety, she didn't know what she was doing. And as we said in the beginning, it's not just the women in the red zone. All women and girls are affected. If you are a woman who is menstruating or a person who is menstruating, the hormones are already acting up. Then you add the anxiety from everything that has happened. You don't know what each day will bring. The other day we had flooding, landslides, houses were destroyed. Like everything that could possibly be going wrong with 2021 is all happening at the same time. It'll be in a pan eruption flood. Right. And so I just want to let other women know that it is okay to not be okay. and it is okay to reach out for help. Whether you are living in a shelter, working in a shelter, in the green zone, from the red zone, we are all experiencing this same pan eruption flood together. And I would like for us to be each other's keeper. If you can help, help in any way that you can. Sometimes all somebody needs is a listening ear. They may not necessarily need an actual physical thing, but they need somebody who's going to listen to them and not judge them. So I think those are what I would want to leave with women. It's okay not to be okay, and it is also just as okay to reach out for help. There is no shame in acknowledging that you are struggling, because we all struggle. My period tried to try me last week, and we are struggling. I called my doctor crying. I said, I cannot do this. I cannot go through a period with everything that is happening to me. And I'm being honest, I told her I need something to stop my period. My periods last 2 weeks to 1 month. And in the middle of a volcanic eruption, with sometimes you don't have water, like most of the day we didn't have running water. I cannot imagine I'm having to change my pad, every so often, and there is no running water. So we are all struggling. And it is okay to reach out for help. Call your friend, call your tanty, call your mommy, reach out to us online. We are there because we understand. So that's what I think I would want to leave as my final thoughts, that we are all in this together and we will get through this together.
Yes. Moureeze, what
In
would you like
terms
to leave
of
with us?
my final thoughts, I think what I would like to leave with is, first of all, just to say that I've been watching the community response and it's been so inspiring. I mean, usually people in this day and age, they really just tend to mind their own business and keep it moving, but people have been mobilizing and doing their best to help. But there's also the concern about, I don't want to say burnout, but the initial rush, feeling like it's just going to slow to a trickle. So what I want persons to know is that this is not just for today, simply because the volcano has less, the activity is less now, so there's not so much a visible sense of, okay, things are not okay. This is a long-term thing. I mean, as we realized last week with the floods, there are side effects. The floods were because of the fact that we haven't had rain in so long, the fact that all of these things are around due to the volcanoes that would have increased the likelihood of the land slippage. So that's what I think. I want people to remember, that it's not just for the short term, but if you could make a long-term commitment to helping and being your sister's keeper, as it were. And also, definitely, it's not just the persons in the red zone. We also have to consider the persons in the green zone, and the fact that the persons in the red zone, they may not be able to return home. So we also have to think long-term in terms of their recovery and their ability to bounce back from this. They basically have to rebuild their lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing. And Moureeze, that's a really important point. It's not just now, it's for as long as it takes, because everything has to be rebuilt. So that's a sobering thought and something that we should take to heart, because we need to continue helping. So thank you all so much. And I know there are going to be questions coming up in this session. So we'll take a couple minutes break before we come back, so folks can drink some water, the speakers can drink some water and prepare for the questions. Before we go off for that break though, I just want to acknowledge the presence of Cherise Noel, She's the founder of the Grenada Endometriosis Support and Awareness Movement. And Kimarie Robertson, she is the co-founder of the She.Is.Lotus Foundation, of which Odelia is the founder. So we thank you both for joining us this evening. So we'll take a 2-minute break. And usually when we say 2 minutes, we mean probably 5, right? So 2 to 5 minutes break, and we'll come back to answer all the questions. See you in 2 to 5 minutes. I was like, no. Welcome back. So we are going to go into our Q&A. And before we do that, I just want to remind you that if you have any questions, you can place them in the Q&A and we will get to them. If you don't want anyone to know who's asking, you are free to do it anonymously, but share your questions in the Q&A and Odelia and Moureeze will respond. And we will also be sharing a feedback survey. We ask you please to respond to the feedback survey. It takes about 2 minutes to complete, and it really helps us to tailor our programming so that we are meeting the needs of endometriosis patients and those that are involved in this whole endometriosis fight. So we will share the link in the chat as well, and we ask you to complete the survey. To take us through our question and answer session this evening, we have our Tobago Affairs Officer, Mrs. Kimarie Richardson-Thomas. She is the academic dean and educator at one of Tobago's premier educational institutions with over 25 years experience in teaching English language, literature, and communication studies. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Linguistics and English Literature, a postgraduate diploma in education, and a Master of Philosophy in Education focused on instructional supervision and perception studies. She's the administrator of the Academy of Creative English, offering tuition services in creative writing and English language arts for primary and secondary students in Trinidad and Tobago. She is a minister with the Open Bible Standard Churches Tobago District in the areas of worship and Christian education for over 30 years. I think Kimarie told us a little lie there because she looks like 30. And she is the wife and mother of 2 grown sons. That's the second lie. Not about the wife, but about the 2 grown sons. So Kimarie, we welcome you this evening and I hand over to you to take us through the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Brigid. Thank you very, very much. We say thank God for lighting and video effects, but it is a pleasure to join you all again tonight. And I want to especially welcome Odelia and Moureeze, and having sat and listened to you, to listen to both of you at the beginning, it was really very insightful. And before we get into our Q&A, I just need to review our disclaimer even as we go into our Q&A to remind us that the information shared in this program is for general informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for individuals. So please consult your healthcare provider if you have questions about your health or before starting any treatment. We want to always ensure that we issue the disclaimers. So ladies, you have been speaking and sharing quite a bit of information. And we have a few questions that we'd like to throw out to you. And what we can do when, and these are questions that some of our attendees have been sharing. And both of you can feel free to answer based on your perspective, based on your level of involvement where they're concerned. So let's take a look at the first question. So our first question this evening is, are any pharmaceutical companies or organizations reaching out to get medication to persons that require it at the shelters?
With regards to medication, that is being done through the Ministry of Health. There are nurses and doctors assigned to the shelters, so persons still get medical attention as needed. Some medications may not be available in the government pharmacy, so they may have to be bought, but there are doctors and nurses assigned to the shelters who do go and check on the persons living there, anybody who expresses any medical concerns, and then the medication part is taken care of from there on. But
So
if anybody wants to donate,
yes,
anybody wants to donate medications, you have to go through the Ministry of Health.
All right, thank you very much, Odelia. Anything else that you'd want to add, Moureeze?
No, no.
All right, so thank you very much. And that's very helpful. So what you're saying essentially is that the medication is essentially going to be coming directly from the Ministry of Health. And you've not really heard from any pharmaceutical companies. So we may try to see, I guess, within the various organizations, and hopefully if anyone else is listening who may have an inside link, that something else can happen to get products and medication directly to the shelters. So another question, and we have it. Yes.
Just before we move on, just to be clear, I think when Odelia said that it's the Ministry of Health, you know, even if someone wanted to offer, they would still have to first liaise with the ministry to find out whether it would be accepted.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Marie.
Fabulous. Right. So has anyone in your organization set up an account or anything where persons can donate financially as well? And I know that there have been numerous agencies throughout the Caribbean who have numerous agencies who've been donating and sending supplies and so on. But do you have an account set up within any of your organizations to assist with financial contributions?
Well, at Planned Parenthood, we have our grant account that we usually use to administer projects. So we would have received funding there from our parent organization, so to speak, and also from other entities. Yeah, but
She.Is.Lotus doesn't have an account set up as yet, but we have partnered with Planned Parenthood. So anybody who wants to send any sort of financial contribution can do so through Planned Parenthood. Okay. We are working together.
Well, thank you, because that that actually touched on another question, because someone actually asked if it would be feasible to send funds and your organization purchase items. And I guess too, I would want to ask, and I know I heard from your Prime Minister, he did indicate, listen, stop sending the water. We have enough water, send the monies. And he said people would want to purchase items. But can you just elaborate a bit on what the situation is on the ground with being able to access those items to purchase, the businesses and supermarkets? How many of them may have been affected by the eruption? Is it still accessible?
Most of the large supermarket chains are in the green zone, most of them centered in Kingston, which is further south. So persons have been buying items to donate at our local supermarkets and pharmacies, and they have been making orders to get in more things from there, wherever they order their things from. But in terms of being able to find products here, in these regular supermarkets that I walk into, the shelves are still stocked. Supermarkets have been open since a few days after the eruption started. So in terms of being able to find products, so far, that has not been a problem, because I've been able to buy things at the supermarket for others.
Okay, so then it is going to be a feasible suggestion then to have your organization establish a fund so that we can also, and other persons who are interested, they can send the funds directly so that you can purchase the items as the needs arise at home.
Yes, and this will take us back to what Moureeze was saying earlier about the long-term needs.
Right.
Because if you send a product now, that is helpful, and then the finances we can use for more long-term needs.
Okay, so then because there was another question, and you would have answered it by when you indicated that the large grocery chains are open and accessible, so that feminine products, are they difficult to access in the green zone? And I know that you indicated earlier that your organization is able to visit at the shelters, and you set up numbers that people can reach you, because many of them are uncomfortable about accessing the services directly. But can you just reiterate, especially for those who might have come in late, the getting feminine products to individuals who are in the shelter? Is it a situation that those who may not be able to afford it, how do they go about accessing it at this time?
Well,
Especially if they left home unprepared. And I remember when you explained that, the reality really hit me in the rush to get out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many women actually running out of the house will think, oh, I need feminine napkins. When we have time to plan, we do that. But now that they've settled, how are they accessing the feminine products?
Well, with regards to the public shelters, they have supplies. Okay. Persons donate, NEMO gives some. Some organizations locally have been making like little packages, feminine packages, that they take to the shelters and donate to the women. So those who are unable to afford, they can access some small packages that have their napkins and wipes, etc. I'm not sure what's happening at the private homes though, because some homes, for example, there's one in my neighborhood, there's 16 evacuees in that home. And I have heard of homes that have up to 21 evacuees. So with regards to those in private homes, I'm not sure how they are accessing getting products for everybody in the home. That's why we are trying to encourage people, please reach out. There are thousands of private homes that are hosting evacuees. We won't be able to know each and every private home. So if you are hosting evacuees and they are women and girls and they need products, please reach out to either She.Is.Lotus or Planned Parenthood. We are willing to help, but you just have to reach out.
Right. Thank you very much, Odelia. And I don't know if, and I keep calling Moureeze, and I don't know if you have anything that you'd want to add there.
Just that at Planned Parenthood, we do have resources available, and they are freely available. So if they do reach out, then we are able to offer.
All right, thank you so much. And we know that even in the distribution and the contributions, those items that have been going out to persons in the shelters, can you indicate what the situation is in terms of clothing, especially for women and girls? Again, because when we rush, and I know they say that women, we overpack, we may pack the clothes before we think of the feminine products, but are there enough? Do they have enough clothes? Do they have enough of everything else? And it may be a difficult question for you to answer right now. I'm not sure if you're aware of what exists for everyone. But with whatever bits of information you do have, do they have enough clothing and sheets, blankets, towels? What is the situation like with regard to these items?
I think Odelia might be better poised to answer that, but what I wanted persons to remember is that, again, the shelters are schools. So I was concerned from the beginning as to, even if you do have enough, how is it getting laundered? How are you washing it? I mean, it's not like the schools have a laundry room where you go and you wash your items and then you hang them on. Where's the line?
Right.
Where's the dryer?
It speaks to another issue, and we're coming back to you, Odelia. That speaks to a whole other need that I guess, and I'm not sure if that conversation has begun. We do know that sometimes there's some people who are very resourceful. I can remember camping in schools. I've camped in schools and we've run lines. We've done laundry in the face basins and so on. But again, what is the exact situation? Because that is a relevant concern. how are things being laundered, because then it also speaks to sanitation within the shelter. And I'll touch on this one, because as we talk about the clothing and these other needs and sanitation, how does all of this factor in to COVID as well? COVID, there's still a pandemic. You had the floods last week, eruptions. What are the impacts that all of these are having on the evacuees?
And then we also have to think of the release that we had, was it last week, where they were basically saying, that women need to be encouraged to dress modestly, and I was actually wondering, yes, but I'm assuming they wouldn't have come with their full suitcases to bring their Sunday best out, but here we are telling women to dress modestly.
Yeah.
So there was an actual government release with regard to that for evacuees?
Yeah, it was from the police force.
Okay.
Because I suppose they said that they were looking out for the
well-being
of the children and other persons in the shelter who I suppose would have been distracted or, I don't know, otherwise insulted by the dress of the women.
Yes. And again, it speaks to what access do women and girls have to, quote unquote, the modest attire, because again, people would leave with what they have. And when you're in the comfort of your home, you're not expecting to be around other persons who you would need to dress modestly for. Because I believe that when a mandate goes out, it should also go out with the resources to fulfill the mandate. And so I'll hand back to you, Odelia. How can you comment on that? What's your experience?
with the clothing? Persons are donating, because as Moureeze said, you didn't run with a suitcase of clothing. Some persons ran with a book bag or a little traveler bag, because a lot of people honestly didn't think that it was going to last this long. To be honest, no, I didn't even think it was going to last this long. It just keeps going and going and going. It's one thing after the other. And so you wouldn't have run with 10 different change of clothing, with a outfit for every day. You're wearing what you have and you're wearing what other people donated to you.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of laundering from the shelters I've visited, now our people are very resourceful. They got their buckets and they have been washing, and they have hung lines anywhere that a line could go. So those are for the shelters I've visited. I've not been to all. So, but for the ones I've been visiting, there are lines everywhere. People are making do with what they have. All people are very resourceful, and they will make a way where there seems to be no way. If that's one thing about Vincent Shelters. If something needs to get done, it will get done. In terms of COVID,
go ahead.
In terms of COVID, the Ministry of Health sends out a release every day with regards to the COVID numbers. A few days ago, they did have a release that indicated one of the shelters had some COVID positive persons. So COVID is still happening. We are encouraging persons, even though you're in a shelter, even though you're getting comfortable with the people in the shelter, still wear your mask. There is still ash outside and there is still COVID outside. Wear your mask, distance as much as you can, and wear your mask, wash your hands, sanitize. Do everything that is to be done with COVID, because we really do not want the numbers to increase, especially in the shelters, because it will spread like wildfire. So we are really trying to keep those numbers down. But we still do have cases.
Yes. And that when you made that point that this is people may do, it's a Vincentian thing. I would add that it's a Caribbean thing. We know how to do these things. Caribbean women know how to make do with whatever situation we get. And I've just been checking on our Facebook Live, and we do have some questions coming in there as well. And we have one question coming in asking, what type of support would be required in the long term? And you were hinting at that just now because you're saying we thought that this would have been finished. And I think we share that same sentiment with regard to COVID. We all thought COVID would be finished. And it almost seems again as if everything that you think you would be finished with in St. Vincent, something else comes. So what do you perceive the long-term support would be? What are the requirements for long-term support for St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. There's
Good. I
so
needed
many,
to give you a hard one to make this
there's
interesting.
so many
I thought it was
aspects
too
to it
easy.
because the long-term needs are many. The north is where most of our agriculture comes from. Farms have been destroyed, livestock have been lost. Those are going to be needs. Food, getting back your animals. Homes have been destroyed. There you're talking about rebuilding. And when you rebuild, you have to furnish. You're going to need furniture. You're going to need appliances. You're going to need down to toothpaste, toothbrush, sheets, towels. Children have to go back to school eventually. You're going to need books. You're going to need uniform. I mean, there are so many, anything that you can think of. There are going to be so many long-term needs, and we are going to have a lot of need for counseling and psychiatric services.
Right.
Because in the moment, people are surviving.
Right.
But people have already started having anxiety. I had one lady, I was sitting in a van. I never met the lady in my life, and she just started talking to me. I mean, that's to tell you how much people need to talk about what's happening to them. She was living in the red zone, and when they said to evacuate, she said to herself, I don't think it's going to be that bad. So she stayed there for the first day of eruptions. And by the Friday night, she decided to leave. She came into the green zone to stay with her relatives. And she said maybe the third or fourth night, she heard a loud noise outside. And it's like she was having an anxiety attack because in her mind, Soufriere was erupting again. And what is going to happen this time? So she just started panicking, and she was home alone, and she had nobody there to talk to or to talk her through it. And it took her a while to, quote unquote, catch herself. And these are going to be long-term needs. The post-traumatic symptoms, hearing loud noises, having nightmares. The children are going to need help as well. So there's a host of needs. So anything that you can help with is going to be so appreciated, because everything from the ground up is going to be needed.
Yes, and just to follow up on what Odelia said in terms of the layering of the problem. I mean, I keep saying the schools are shelters. So if the schools are shelters, children can't return to school. But the persons, some of them, aren't able to return to home because there is no home. And also it's not recommended that you rebuild in that area. So then we have to look at even down to basic issues like land allocation. Where are these persons going to live? Where are they going to relocate to? I mean, are they able to keep up their employment? Because like we would have said, they've lost their animals. They've lost their plots, where they would have planted their crops for export or for sale, so there's all of that to consider. So even as we get the persons assisted, now we still have to think about, okay, we need to figure out a way of how we're going to conduct school in the middle of all of this. How are we going to manage these other issues?
Ladies, thank you so much.
Talking about school,
go ahead.
Sorry, but talking about school, Moureeze, you reminded me, external examinations are coming up. So, for example, my goddaughter, she has TTEA coming up. And there have been so many interruptions in schooling, and now the schools are shelters and the exams are coming up. Like I'm concerned how our children are going to function in these exams. How are they going to do? And then if they don't do well, what impact is this going to have on their mental health and on the way they move forward? So it's so layered. It's so many things to consider in all of this.
I am aware that the regional examining body, CXC, they have issued, and this was before La Soufriere, just simply because of COVID-19, they had issued the option of deferrals for their exams this year for participants. But I'm also aware that many of the ministries of education, some schools, in fact, the ministries have sent it out and informed students and their parents and schools and teachers that there is the option to defer the exam. But then you still have to grapple with adding this cohort of students into next year's. And again, all of these are things to be grappled with. And one question that I'd want to throw out here, a question that had been asked, and both of you had indicated, again, you're visiting with persons at the shelters, you are on the ground and you're both trying to meet the needs. You have this stranger who sits in your car and speaks to you, so you have your office on wheels, Odelia, and you guys are connecting with persons. But are you aware of if there are any psychologists or psychiatrists who may be offering their counseling service to women, to individuals who may need it? And if so, is this also a facility that also has to go through the Ministry of Health?
Okay, so I am a trained psychologist and I work as a counselor in the Ministry of Health. So the services are not being offered to just any specific body. It's offered to everybody. So the children, the adults, everybody, the service is being offered to. If you are interested, you access it. So there is no, it's only for the children, it's only for the adults. Everybody can access the services. If there are volunteers for counseling, that has to go through NEMO. So that's the National Emergency Management Organization. If you're volunteering, you have to be cleared by NEMO, because we want to make sure that not anybody is going into the shelters, make sure that you're qualified, all of these things. So for now, those of us who work in the government service, we are also working in the shelters.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a ticklish one here. And this, bear in mind, these are questions coming in from our attendees. Again, because, and you've indicated that the shelters are mixed. Have you had any reports of, and again, it's a ticklish one, have you heard of any instances of sexual harassment or abuse occurring in the shelters?
I personally haven't heard, but I don't know what is happening at all shelters. So I can't speak to that question. But personally, I have not heard.
I haven't heard anything either.
All right, that's a very good, comforting and reassuring answer. So we have another question that asks, if it makes sense, does it make sense to send such items as underwear along with clothing in respect to sizing, as persons of non-average size may most likely not be accommodated? Should we just send, and I know we spoke about the monies before, but someone asked about sending things like personal items such as that, or just send the monies?
I think it would be better to send money, because then that way you could ensure that you met the needs of the particular persons, rather than sending it and hoping that you can find someone who need it. Yeah.
All right, so ladies, tell me, and for our viewers, and it's one to think about with everything that has been happening. Do you get a sense that there may be some approach to normalcy anytime soon?
So I saw an interesting, I think it was a post somewhere today, and they were basically saying, you know, the intentions are very interesting people. I mean, the volcano was still erupting, COVID is still in the air. We just had the floods, but people are acting normally, as it were, you know. I mean, I suppose persons are just trying their best to remain calm in the situation and not necessarily to give too much credence to what is really happening. You know, I think that's the best way to cope. So it's not necessarily that well, I don't think we're going to see any normalcy anytime soon, but I guess the mindset is if you act like it, then it is. This is normal.
And again, our definition of normal
normal
has changed. Exactly. Normal has changed. What used to be normal, and for all of us around the world, what used to be normal has definitely changed. So I'm just checking back again with our Facebook Live. We've answered most of our questions. And I want to make sure that we've gotten all of them. And it seems that we have. And I just would like to, before we wrap up and before I turn back to our host, any other comments, anything else that you would like us to know, what it is, anything else that we can do as individuals, as organizations, as part of your Caribbean family? And I say that because I know I have Vincentian roots myself, and if we check it, we all have roots somewhere else. So is there anything else that we can do? And I like that you indicated that the psychological needs aren't just for women and girls, but again, because of the nature of our platform, we started there, but the needs are broader, they're wider than just women and girls, it's all Vincentians. What else can we do at this time to assist? So let me start with Moureeze, please. I have to do, I'm a teacher, so we have to call names so that we can call direct names. I was too vague. So Moureeze, is there anything else that we can do to assist our Vincentian brothers and sisters?
No, I think I'd just like to, you know, just repeat what I said before, and that, you know, I want persons to remember that it's not just a short-term effort, you know, and that it would require long-term commitment because of the layered nature of the issues and the, you know, the fact that the after effects are still there. And in terms of help, just, I think if you can help organizations such as the Endometriosis Association to offer assistance, or help your local Planned Parenthood so that they could respond in times of crisis. You know, that's what I want persons to take away as well, is that, you know, it's always important to do what you can where you can.
I don't think there's anything to add to what Moureeze just said. The response is going to, the help is going to be needed for a very long time to come. And so I won't want people to get tired of well-doing, because we're going to need it. Our brothers and sisters are going to need it. And whichever country you are in, support organizations in your country that in turn support those of us who are really struggling. Those are, I think, are the two things that we can do moving forward, because as great as an individual response is, we do better when we do it together as organizations. So if you are an individual in a particular country, come together, assist another organization, start your own organization. And by being a strong unit, you can do so much more to help not just those in your country, but those in other countries that will need your help.
I have one more question. It just occurred to me. Have you seen any instances of fraudulent behavior? Any occurrences of fraud where people are trying to take advantage of the needs of Vincentians during this time? And if so, in what way?
Well, definitely. Early on, you would have had the fake GoFundMes and that type of stuff. That's why I think what Odelia is saying is so important. It's to look to the organizations that exist, not necessarily, I don't want to say established organizations, because I mean, look, we have She.Is.Lotus and it's still a relatively new organization, but the organizations that would have already been out there, would have already been in the field helping, those types of organizations. I think that's a very good way of filtering it out. But yes, we have had situations where persons, because of the initial flow response to indicate which were really acceptable channels to donate, persons would have just jumped on and started their own, and some obviously would have been legitimate and others not.
So are there any, can you direct us to any websites that may actually list legitimate agencies? I don't know if it exists, but, or I'm reading your facial expressions, Moureeze, I'm so sorry, right? But apart from the Ministry of Health, is there anywhere else that we can, those of us who are here and anywhere else that may be listening to the conversation, how can we be certain that where we are reaching out to is legitimate? Is there anything like that established in St. Vincent for us, or are we just contact you guys? Tell me.
Yeah, I think
don't think there's a directory per se.
Yeah,
I haven't seen a directory.
There's a Twitter thread, but I think it's best that you just reach out to us, because it's hard to try to figure it out if you're not on the ground.
All right. So I'm going to ask, there's a request, not a question. And as before I make that request that came in, I want to remind attendees to check in the chat section of our discussion here on Zoom. I believe it's, yes, we have it on Zoom. For your participant survey, there is a survey for you. The link is in the chat. So I want to direct you there as I throw this out to our panelists. Can you just, before we wrap up, or as we wrap up, just summarize for our listeners, again, what is the final decision for persons who wish to donate and places of drop-offs? Persons who wish to donate, how should they go about it? Just summarize it. I know you've said it before, but we are West Indians and some people came in a little late through no fault of their own. So if you could just recap what it is we need to do if we want to help, what are the drop-off points, where can we donate? Odelia.
Right. So,
okay,
yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say that She.Is.Lotus is partnered with Planned Parenthood on that aspect. So feel free to, I'll share the details in a written post, but feel free to make donations to the Planned Parenthood Association, and we would ensure that it's utilized to purchase items for persons. And in terms of drop-off points, I wouldn't really know of any in terms of in Trinidad. I'm hoping that you guys would offer yourselves as such. But even if you don't, you can address the items to the Planned Parenthood Association, and they would give me a call and let me know that it's there to collect, and we'll collect and distribute.
Yes, Odelia. Thank you very much, Moureeze. Odelia.
Yes, as Moureeze said, we are partnering in this time because they have a building, they have a bank account, and we, as I said before, we work better together. By ourselves, we would still do work, but we would not get as much done as we work together, because we are joining resources, we are joining, everything that we hear. I would send a message to Moureeze, or she would message me, or we figure it out, but we do it together, and that helps to make life a little easier. And you can reach more people by doing that.
Yes.
Because there might be persons that I hear about that she hasn't heard about, and persons she's heard about that I haven't heard about. So we reach more people, we get more done, and we are using the resources that we already have, like a bank account. Don't need to go create something new, it's already there, and we'll get the work done.
And that's our grant account, so no other funds go there except funds that are meant to help.
Thank you very much, ladies. You've done a fabulous job with answering all of the questions that have been shared this evening. And I want to thank you for your engaging dialogue, your engaging discussion. And at this time, I'm going to return us to our host, Ms. Brigid Winter. Thank you and good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much, Kimarie, for fielding our questions so expertly and for getting some answers that maybe someone else would not have gotten. Thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you, sometimes never enough. Thank you to Moureeze and thank you to Odelia for sharing with us this evening. And although you don't know drop-off points in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for us, we, the TTEA, actually has a La Soufriere volcanic drive on. And for those of you listening in Trinidad and Tobago, we are looking specifically for feminine products and the like that can assist specifically ladies. So feel free to check out the TTEA Facebook page for all the information about what we are asking for. You can drop off at the National Library building in Port of Spain and the Anchor Villa building in Chaguanas for now. As we add additional drop-off points, we will post it on the various social media platforms. So feel free to donate what you can. And if we have any millionaires, billionaires, or filthy rich people with us this evening, or if you know any of these people, encourage them to maybe adopt a family or adopt a family member in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not to take them away from their families, but to assist them for a fixed deposit help. So to assist them for a particular period, maybe the endo organizations around the world could adopt an endo patient and, make a plan to help them for maybe 12 months with their feminine products and their medication or something. We can't do everything, but we could do something. So if I can, I will try and adopt some female and make a plan to help them with products for like a year or as far as possible. So if you are rich, please reach out to us. We are not going to ask you for anything extra, just to help our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Before we go this evening, I know the answer. I found it out during this week, but I want to ask Odelia to share with us what is the meaning behind She.Is.Lotus? What is the connection with endometriosis, adenomyosis, female menstrual problems? What is She.Is.Lotus? I feel like there's something interesting there. that will encourage us as we leave this evening.
Okay. So I was telling Brigid earlier this week that I studied in Taiwan for a couple of years, and my campus is gorgeous. It was gorgeous, one of the most beautiful campuses I have ever seen. But there was a spot on the campus I could not understand. Had this muddy pond in the middle of a beautiful campus. And, you know, me being me, I went and asked questions. And I was told, just wait, in a few months, you will see some beautiful flowers, and it's very rare. What flower could grow in this mess? Like, these people can't be serious. And sure enough, in a few months, I started seeing these beautiful pink flowers, these lotus blooms come up, and buses of people would travel hours just to take the pictures of these flowers. And I was later diagnosed, like maybe about 4 or so years after that, with endometriosis. And when I decided to become an advocate, the lotus flower just stuck with me because it grows such beauty in such darkness, in mud. It reminded me of being a woman, of being a person who identifies as a woman, that there are difficulties we are going to go through. Whether it's endometriosis, fibroids, just living. And there are going to be difficulties, but we can do more than just survive. We can thrive. In spite of our circumstances, in spite of how dark and dismal it may seem, we have the ability to do great things. And so even in the midst of this pan-eruption flood, which is our muddy circumstances, we are going to do great. It may be hard right now. So we are in the winter of the season where the flowers are not blooming. But sure enough, in a few months come springtime, our lotus blooms are going to be seen. And I just want to remind all women, whether you're in St. Vincent or not, I don't know what you're going through. You may not know what I am going through, but I know we each have something that we're struggling with. And this is just your reminder that no matter what it is, you can do more than just survive. You can thrive. It doesn't mean that your muddy circumstances are going away because the lotus flower is still on this mud. It just means you are doing well, regardless of the circumstances that you're coming from.
That was a word, Sister Odelia. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So, and that's something I think we could leave with. In spite of the circumstances, things will never remain the same. It will never always be mud. So let's look forward to the lotus blooms. So Odelia, Moureeze, we thank you so much for joining us. And, you know, for even while you both are going through this difficult circumstance, you are doing something to help. And that is encouraging, especially in younger people. It's just really encouraging. So I want to offer both of you your own advice. If you need help, please reach out to us. Don't feel shame. Don't feel badly. If you need our help, please reach out to us. We are here for you. So we thank you for sharing with us this evening and for spending time with us. We also want to say thank you to the members of the TTEA board and the executive. A special thank you as well to Ms. Kimarie Richardson-Thomas, our moderator for this evening, and to you, our participants and attendees. Thank you for joining us. We hope that what was shared here this evening is beneficial to you. Please feel free to share it with others. If you are not a member of the TTEA, please join us. It's free. You do not need to be an endometriosis patient to join us. You can just have an interest, but please feel free to join us. And a reminder to complete our feedback survey. It takes but 2 minutes. It really does, I promise you. And Stay tuned to the Trinidad and Tobago Endometriosis Association's Facebook page, website, and Instagram account for our next Spotlight Endometriosis session. We look forward to having you join us. And to our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, our thoughts and our prayers are with you, and our monies, as far as we can help. Well, I can only speak for myself, right? Are with you as well. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and please have a great night and bloom where you are planted. Thank you, guys.